Hello and welcome to Insight, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you for joining us on this episode.
As we continue to prospect and look ahead to a transformative year, our focus this week will center on how disruptive tech, especially artificial intelligence, AI, is transforming the landscape as we know it, and how it is being used to address local challenges and advance development. We'll also talk about some of the important elements required for a successful startup, especially with a growing number of young adults who are striving to be entrepreneurs. Elizabeth?
And of course, you know, across the globe, the campaign against corruption has been heightened. So our last segment will focus on tackling corruption as a global concern. And our guest is a young Nigerian who is focused and determined to win the war against corruption.
Very well then, let's kickstart the program. I'm fascinated with the discourse on national monuments and assets and how much is being done to preserve and
look into the language issue. We have turned English to become like a pride value in our own cultural values.
It's not cash transfer. It's not a COVID-19.
Invasion 1897 was a deliberate
you know, many of these people coming to the urban areas now.
These and applications, there are terms and conditions.
Of course, it is the union of two people, a man and a woman coming together.
My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori.
Very well then, let's begin. These days, it is becoming less surprising to see what AI can do. From something as seemingly simple as creating an avatar to clearly complex tasks as automating business processes and having in-depth conversation. Indeed, AI is reimagining the realm of possibilities. But let's talk about AI adoption in Africa and how they are helping to resolve local challenges, and I mean development-wise, whether in business and finance, as indeed other aspects of society. My guest is Tidiani Togola. He is the founder and CEO of Tuwindi, a civic tech firm operating out of Mali. Welcome to the program, Tidiani. Good to have you join me, and merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Merci.
Let's begin by narrowing the near limitless possibilities of AI, to some of the thematic areas that I know you are very familiar with, that your firm, works around or centers its operations on. And I mean elections and digital economy. Talk to me about the impact of AI in the transformation of elections and maybe the election or election monitoring process, and how extensive these changes are in making elections and public governance more transparent and easier across Africa. And if it's okay by you, while you're reacting to that, you can also talk about AI and how it's digitizing economies across Africa.
Thank you very much. AI is, let's say, at its very early stage in Africa, but even in the world, there is many practices that is possible. It's kind of experience level at that time. The different technologies still learning. When it comes to Africa and the question of election particularly, AI will play a significant role, particularly when we want to do some data analysis to prevent violence, or even to have a better understanding of the voter trends, or developing policies that better answers to the voter or citizen needs, or developing, taking strategic decision using AI. So it is totally possible today to use the AI for the election, but for the governance in general, because AI, within the amount of data that we collect, AI helps to facilitate the data analysis and also to facilitate even the decision-making process.
And in terms of digital economy, I mean, these days across African countries and communities, we see governments and public institutions and structures adapting e-commerce, adapting e-wallets for agricultural ventures and even for startups. I mean, how transformative are some of these changes across some communities that you have worked yourself in Africa?
You know, in terms of digital economy, it brings a lot of opportunities. For example, when we take the specific area of agriculture, you know, using AI helps community and academic and researchers to, you know, to develop new products and also to have a better analysis on the of different, you know, different soils. And in addition to that, it helps also in terms of even climate analysis to, you know, to have a better positioning. So AI is a tool that helps the population to, you know, to take a better position. This is some element in agriculture that really help, you know, to even increase the efficiency and the productivity of what we are producing in Africa. So, which is a very good opportunity. AI also can help in terms of health sector, you know, many, for example, for assistance, reproductive assistance system, today, different clinics in Africa, for example, in Mali, we do have some clinics who already are using AI to assist in terms of reproduction, and in Kenya. So this AI technology even is playing a crucial role in terms of health. And but in terms of now business, you know, when we take, for example, a country like Kenya, they are already using AI-driven technology, you know, for mobile payment. For example, M-Pesa today has this possibility, and we have other possibility using AI. The crucial advantage of it is that when you are using AI in your business, it quickly ups. Hello?
Please go ahead. We can hear you clearly.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Yeah.
We can hear you
so
clearly.
When you are using AI in your business, it gives you a significant assistance in terms of understanding the others. For example, when a new business, let's take, for example, a startup, someone who wanted to address to customer or wanted to understand the trend or the behavior of the customer, when he use the AI, it will definitely help him to have a better view and on the customer need and the customer behavior. So based on that, it will be able to produce. It also something that is very, you know, it helps to avoid all type of waste of time. You know, you can go very quickly and you can be very efficient in terms of production. So these are some opportunities. I'm not saying like in Africa we will have all the possibility to do it very easily. We still have some challenges. I think we will be talking during this program.
Yes, exactly, because I mean, I hear you and I hear about the possibilities and how even startups can adopt AI-driven initiative to push their business. And I wanted to ask you, I mean, I see from some of your work, not just within the West African region, but across Africa, I would like to tap into your experience and perhaps reference some of what you've done in relation to helping small businesses and startups apply AI in some of what they do. And I know experiences and I know capacity varies from country to country. Like you referenced Kenya and how much Kenya has gone. In terms of capacity, I even know that a country like Mali is reputed to have a robust AI developers community, even more than some communities or countries in West Africa. So in terms of capacity and building capacity, how much so, you know, are we doing to improve adaptation and, you know, in term increase adoption of AI for, you know, for significantly to grow businesses within communities in Africa in terms of building capacity?
Let's talk about, for example, what Twindi is doing. You know, as Twindi, we are key players in developing solutions. But the truth also is, even if we are playing this role, if we want this to expand in the whole continent, we have some challenges to face too. The first is, to have very good infrastructure that can support AI development. That is important, because if you don't have those infrastructure today, when you go, for example, in rural area, it's very unfortunate to see the gap between the capital city and a rural area. This is the first challenge. The second element, if we want this to be really developed, is to keep working in terms of reinforcing the capacity of AI developers, and also educating the population in general to AI opportunity, and also to AI trend and all the challenges linked to ethical issues. Because, for example, let's take the Twindi case. We do develop solutions driven by AI, so our solution can assist people directly in their national languages. But we are an organization with a limited capacity in terms of language. For example, we don't speak Yoruba. We don't have a Yoruba language expert here. And AI has to be trained by human being, by different realities and the context, Even if we do have it, it's quite easy sometimes to develop solutions, but it's not as easy as it sometimes looks like to adapt the AI in our own context. That's why we need to create this infrastructure, training people. We also need a very strong regulation system, because AI is not just a kind of blessing that will come to fix all the issue. It also comes with some critical strengths in terms of ethics. For example, all the challenges linked to disinformation.
Very true.
Yeah, so it's very important, for example, to have a very strong regulation system where we have this opportunity. Of course, the policy that we are developing also has to be AI friendly, because if we just scare from AI and saying, okay, this is something that is a science fiction, or this is something that is too far from us, our policy makers also need to work on this specific issue and to adapt the policy that we have so we can create a good environment. So finally, the last element that is not least is funding, AI development through the financial support to the AI developers or AI promoting initiatives.
Great. While we're on this subject, I'd like for you to give us examples of areas where AI ideas, can drive a business, maybe a startup, and possibly align an entrepreneur's goals and targets, with that of prospective, maybe a possible source of funding, or investors whose interest would also align with that entrepreneur. Is this something that AI can also, AI of course can automate businesses, automate processes. Is that something AI can also do? In terms of growing business for, deploying or adapting AI for business setup? We apologize for the intermittent glitches that we've been experiencing with our connections there in Mali. And now it does appear we've lost connections with Tidiane. Unfortunately, it was a promising conversation. I had wanted to talk about the flip side of AI adaptation. Some say the morality of it, with its near endless possibilities, of course, also comes challenges that humans and computer programmers would have to be wary of and contend with always. There appears to now be more cases of data breaches, even meddling in elections become even easier. And also there's also the issue of privacy, as a matter of fact. The question then would be, how do we handle the negative impact of advances in AI? This was an angle of the conversation I would have loved for Tidiane to respond to. And of course, I had also wanted to push the conversation a bit further by talking about policymakers, university researchers, perhaps businesses and others within the ecosystem, and how all of these stakeholders can work together to regulate adoption and adaptation positively and for development. And I would have loved Tidiane's take on whether he sees a path forward for multi-stakeholder partnership in this regard. But of course, we would create another opportunity for Tidiane to appear on our program, Insight, and we would pursue the conversation in some of these areas that I've outlined. Moving ahead, let's talk about startups. But essentially, what do you need to start a business? Is it perhaps a great idea or a business plan? Or is it all about securing funding and having a great team? Maybe it's all about figuring out a marketing plan and having a customer base. Well, I can tell you all of these elements I mentioned are key to building a successful startup, but perhaps there's even more that is needed. Well, let's find out from my guest, Aliyu Shatta Isa, a fintech specialist with over 15 years of working experience in startups and fintech, as well as in the public and private sector. He's currently the MD on Limit Nigeria, a fintech with license to operate in 54 countries. Good to see you in the new year, Aliyu Shatta, and welcome to Insight.
The pleasure is always mine.
Okay, I'm sure you listened to all of the elements that I reeled out earlier for a successful startup. Can you speak to these critical elements and tell me if one or more, or which is most important? Can you basically just give me the ABCD of establishing a successful, or what would happen to be a successful startup?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say, everything you said is needed, for a startup, but you have to take it one after the other. Okay. But the most important thing that is needed, that is germane, is first passion.
Passion.
And problems.
The problems are plenty. The problems are there are plenty in society.
You have a lot of problems, and your ability to bring up a solution to solve that problem, right, first, gives you that platform to begin to now start to think around how you can innovatively or creatively solve that problem. So first, passion. You must be driven by passion to want to solve those problems. So keep money aside.
Okay.
But first thing that you put just at, very close to you, apart from the passion that you have, is profit. So you can see that everything I've been talking about is PP, right? Right. So
passion,
you need passion. You need to identify the problems.
P.
Then, of course, you need to think about profit from day one.
That's the 3 P's.
Right?
First.
Yes. Then you also need to think about the people. So everything is about PPP. You need to think about the people, because behind your innovation, behind your idea, you need people to drive that idea, right? You need a good team. So once you have identified a problem, once you have, constructively identify an idea that can solve the problem, you need to bring people together to help you crack those ideas into implementable initiatives, implementable products, implementable solutions that you can take to the market, where you now have your go-to-market strategy, right? From this gathering of people that you now brainstorm, you identify all of the key needs, the acts that you want. Realistically, once you have done that, you can now start small with friends and family, okay, right? To at least raise those funds to do what? To do your POC, proof of concept, before you now begin to test and experiment to run a pilot. Now, you will actually need to run a pilot to test your ideas, to see the level of people that will accept your ideas, okay, right? Now you have talked about a solution. There is a market dynamism that will come from what you have produced versus what is actually needed. And I will give you an example.
Please do.
What happens today in the startup industry, that you see a lot of constructive ideas, innovations, people develop all of these products using technology, of course. But by the time they develop these products, they lack some feedback mechanism that they need to use to tweak the product that they have identified as a solution to the problem they are trying to solve, right? So once you can aggregate all of these together, then you can now begin to prepare for the market to scale. Then you can now begin to talk about your pre-seed, your seed, your series 1, series 2, your series 3, before you now go IPO, right? So all of these things require steps, and it requires patience, it requires passion, it requires you identifying the right people, it requires you identifying the problem and providing a very, very realistic solution to all of these problems. So, and that is the reason why you see today proliferation of people who run to the market, raise funds, 6 months, 3 months later, they tell you that they pack shop.
Very well. Talking about packing up shop, and in spite of having all of these lofty ideas, even having a marketplace and everything, and then 6 months later you hear they've packed up. I mean, it brings me to the key issue of timing. Would you say timing is everything for a startup? An entrepreneur may have every other thing, every other element, and like the example you gave earlier, the person may even launch too early, maybe when the market isn't even ripe for the product or for the service, and the business fails, maybe after 6 months or less than that. How then do you determine timing? How do you determine timing and not mistake timing for opportunity as an entrepreneur? And is a startup success therefore a product of good timing, essentially?
Yeah. So timing is a combination of factors. Now, you can go to the market on time and lack the proper product to sell. You can get to the market on time. Can you?
Please go ahead. We can hear you. Yes.
Okay. You get to the market on time, right? And you don't have customer base to, and you don't have the technology to really, expand that product. So, but
you were breaking up a bit there. If you'd like to take that back again, so our viewer gets it clearly. Yes.
Okay, I'll take it back again. I said timing is very important, of course, right? But you can get on time, and you don't have the required technology, you don't have the required customer base, you don't have the required knowledge to really utilize that timing opportunity to launch, right? Important. It is important for you to also, as a matter of, know the kind of product that you want to launch and the people who need that product. I'll give an example.
Please.
When mobile money operations started, I think more than a decade ago, right? There were a lot of us, of course, who are pioneers of mobile money operations in Nigeria, who started, the process. Now, the timing wasn't too ripe because there was no awareness.
Okay.
Even regulation, for instance, but they too do not have the required experience at that time to support the industry, right? And for those of us who were testing the waters for the first time, we're also taking risk, trying to model a model that are M-Pesa, but unfortunately, the scenario that Kenya is not the same with Nigeria. So in Nigeria, you already have a large penetration of card base, right? Versus in Kenya, where you don't have enough of that. So it was easier for them to adopt the wallet-based solution versus what we had in Nigeria, right? So when you're talking about timing, look at what happened with the cash crunch, when people were, looking for cash and all of that. If OPay wasn't in existence, if some of these fintech who took advantage of that challenge, if they didn't exist at that point, they would have lost the opportunity to go to actually get to the market as well. They were already in the market, but they took advantage of that opportunity to reinforce themselves into the market, and digital finance adoption became sing song in the industry, and everybody is waking up to that reality to understand that yes, we have a right product to adopt. Secondly, right, everybody is still shouting about the cash. It's not Uhuru yet. Ask yourself one fundamental question, which I still feel we have a problem that we have not solved. What you have today is POS operators scattered around of ATM machines, right? But in human form, right? So ask yourself the fundamental question. People are still going to withdraw cash, but those transactions, because it is done through the POS channel, it is still registered as electronic transaction, right? So you want to ask yourself that fundamental question to say, what exactly, right? What exactly do you need to do to follow where the money is being spent? That is where the problem lies. That is where innovation comes. That is where the opportunity comes. That is where the timing comes as well. So all of the combinations are the things that are germane for you as an entrepreneur to go to the market. But first, all of those P are also very important in getting to the market.
I hear you, Alishata, and I hear you, Claire. I mean, it just reinforces the fact that, look, ideas are king in within this ecosystem, within this industry as well. But then you need to be careful in planning and how you launch these ideas and when you launch them. It's all in the timing. I mean, and aligning the P's, your P's that you've talked about here. Talking about being careful as well. Why is it also important for startups to be open to change and to be willing to rejig ideas and embrace new ideas in order to grow, depending on how or what the environment throws at them?
Yeah, earlier I talked about research and development, right? And you can, once you are most successful organizations today, successful companies, successful businesses that have thrived. Amazon, for instance, started as an online book, marketplace before it metamorphosized into what you have today, and it has become a $1 trillion, investment, right? So what they did differently was actually following the trend of how the behavioral pattern of the customers. So they were always getting feedback, from their customers. So the research and development that they have is like almost 30% of the organization, which is very important, right? So as a tech organization, technology, when you wake up the following day, technology changes. So have at the back of your mind the power of collaboration, right? Strategic partnership, right? And retweaking and rejigging like you talked about, because you need to be able to follow the trend as it happens. So don't look at the market in isolation to say you want to go and take the market 100%. Nobody can successfully do that. So you need to collaborate. You need to come together, have a handshake with other people for you to be able to, get this done 100%. So for me, what I feel that we need to look at more importantly is that why do startups in Nigeria really fail? Most especially the fintech space. I'll tell you the obvious reason. The obvious reason is experience. Now, if you do a roll call of all of those who have come out to announce that they have, raised X amount of money and they quickly went to the market, the high burn rate of marketing is very high. I can tell you that for free. Then they overprice themselves.
Okay.
That is the reason why you see that the money that they are supposed to use to expand the business, they are using it to pay salaries. They are using it to live a very flashy life, driving exotic vehicles, right? Going for meetings outside the country that are basically unnecessary, right? And they are busy investing even the funds in different ventures that are not particularly linked to the business that they have actually pitched, that business for. That's the reason why you see that they fail. And if they don't come to reality to begin to identify experience as one of the key drivers of their businesses, we will continue to have, these failures, or this high failure rate in the industry. And regulation is also another thing, right? Okay. The regulatory body are also keeping a bird eye view on these, little companies to ensure that they tighten the regulatory framework and ensure that it is only those who are active players that can come into the ecosystem to play, as opposed to pretenders.
You know, but isn't that where, I mean, the whole issue of, and this is me trying to, understanding that the ecosystem is expanding, you know, for business in Nigeria. And, you know, so I'm attempting now, since you raised this issue, to flip our support or to flip our conversation to the issue of support for startups here in Nigeria. And also bring up the issue of mentorship for entrepreneurs. I mean, I listened to the scenario you painted out earlier. And then it makes me wonder how much in terms of startup support exists in Nigeria. We see some initiatives. We see initiatives like the Tony Elumelu Foundation, where innovative ideas are not just incubated, but nursed into actionable projects for aspiring entrepreneurs. How significant is that kind of mentorship, you know, for startups, so that we don't get people misaligning ideas, or people getting into ventures they shouldn't get into, that do not even align to their primary tasks of what they have set out to do, like you've said earlier.
Yeah, very critical. What you said, spot on. Very, very critical. Mentorship is very key. Training and retraining is also very key, right? And even the entrepreneurs identifying role models, you know, to probably coach them or mentor them is also very important, right? They can always leverage on existing industry players like us, who have had, you know, series of experiences. Without being arrogant, I want to say that most of the innovations that you are seeing today, that most of these entrepreneurs are bringing out, are what we have done 11, 12, 9 years ago, right? And we've made mistakes. So it will be important for them to be able to identify those who have gone through that journey, you know, for them to tap from the experiences that, you know, these people have, the encyclopedia of ideas that, you know, experts in the industry have, right? Or operators or practitioners in the industry have. It would be nice, you know, for them to identify them. I mean, majority of us are on LinkedIn, for instance, which is a professional platform where, you know, everyone can go there to check out and look out for, you know, someone they can, you know, just adopt as a mentor rather, and you can also mentor them, you know, in the industry. Then I will also advise that for those of us who have gotten, you know, these years of experiences, we can also come together to form, you know, a platform where we can also give back, you know, to the industry. And all of these young entrepreneurs can come in and tap from our experiences, and we can also guide them, you know, on how they can move forward. One of the things I must give to these young entrepreneurs is that they are pretty smart. They are very, very smart people. They are intelligent, and they have a lot of energy. But yeah, as to how they can channel this energy into productive use is one of the things that they'll be looking at. Those energy that they are burning out in, you know, things that they don't necessarily have to participate in, you know, because you cannot rule out the midnight candle burning. You know, you need to do a lot of research, like I said. You need to do a lot of readings. You need to do a whole lot of thinking as well. So you need to be able to be up to speed with almost everything that is happening within or around your environment, for you to be able to, you know, quickly plug and play your ideas in the ecosystem.
Well, eating into the producer just reminded me that, well, our time is almost up. But just before I let you go, I'd like for you to talk a bit about the future of AI in a country like Nigeria. I had a conversation earlier with a civic tech expert, and I'd like your input on this whole issue of AI and how it's enhancing operations of startups and businesses in Nigeria. I know artificial intelligence, blockchain, cloud computing, and big data are regarded as the cocoa for you guys in fintech, as in fintech operators like yourself. But tell me something, how significantly, you know, has AI been able to transform the landscape in terms of business generally in Nigeria, and particularly for the growth of startups and in the country?
Very significant. You can't talk about AI without mentioning technology, right? And I can count all of the verticals, business verticals, that AI has actually helped in catapulting into, you know, what we have today as a digital economy in Nigeria. And the space is really growing. You want to talk about e-commerce. So nobody really truly understands what happens from the time you order for an item and from when the item is delivered to you and when payment is made, either online or on delivery or offline, right? So nobody truly understands this entire ecosystem. That is on the e-commerce space. Then you now talk about food delivery as well. You go online, you order for food. Food is very critical. Everybody needs it. So look at the timing. The time you buy the food online, the time that the food is delivered to you. All of those are powered by artificial intelligence in also gathering a lot of information. Then you talk about the hay riders as well. You talk about logistics. Logistics is one of the largest chain within all of this ecosystem, whether you want to call it motorcycle, truck, and all of that. So everybody has identified and are using artificial intelligence to run all of these mechanisms. All of these processes. Where it has reduced a lot of human being interference,
yes,
right, in business processes. And you can ascribe this to artificial intelligence.
Prospecting into the future, what do you see for digital economy and for startups in Nigeria, considering advances in tech and now AI is being adopted and applied and adapted in Nigeria?
Oh, I see great things, massive opportunity to come, right? I see a lot of opportunity to come, a lot of most innovative ideas. There are some ideas that I know for now that are even already coming out that are going to change the entire landscape for Nigeria in terms of financial inclusion drive, right? And I can guarantee you, even with all of the hula baloo that you've heard about all of the corrupt practices that is happening within the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, I can guarantee you that there are a lot of already tailored solutions that can guarantee data-driven process and also guarantee that the right people are having access to these finances. And the future is bright for us in credit, micro insurance, micro pension, all will be around 100% through technology. And you will see it happening.
I think this will be the best place to round off our conversation. Ali Shatta Issa, FinTech expert, the Managing Director on Limit Nigeria. Thank you so much for your insight on this subject matter.
The pleasure is always mine. Thank you.
Elizabeth Omori is up next.
Corruption erodes trust, weakens democracy, hampers economic development, and further promotes poverty and social division. Exposing corruption and holding the corrupt to account can only happen if we understand the way corruption works and the system that enables it, says Transparency International. How can we put a check on corruption in public service to build a better and healthy nation? My guest, Charles Maridoti Oludare, a public analyst who joins us via Zoom, will speak to us. Mr. Charles, thank you so much for joining us on Insights.
Thank you for having me today. Thanks. Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you so much. Now, in your terms, what would be your definition of corruption? And I ask because negativity seems to be the new normal for some persons, virtually in all spheres.
Corruption is to me there are definitely different forms of corruption, but to me, I believe corruption is just anything that pervades the mind, that weakens the system. And for us to be able to have a better understanding, and thanks for starting with that quote by Transparency International. What is responsible for corruption, it varies depending on the sphere or the society that you are in and that you are talking to and that you are operating in. So we can actually look at it from the Nigerian perspective and focusing more on the security, on the civil service point of view, and look at it through, I'll just start with three of the multiple, dimensions from which you can look at corruption. We can look at the system that actually, pervades it and enables it. And first is, the issue of security. In Nigeria, we have to start with the fact that, and I'm talking of financial and economic security right now, we have a situation whereby civil servants, workers, cannot boast of anything tangible. I met a guy about a few hours ago who is 42, said he's going to be retiring in 2 years. How many Nigerians can do this? So when you don't have this kind of a system whereby your lifetime of work as giving you something tangible, then you don't, you feel the need to want to be covetous and be corrupt and do anything to better your lot. That is one aspect that we can actually look at it. Also, the other aspect that I think I look at it from is also the issue of the mentality, the way human mind developed, whereby some people have what a known psychologist Sigmund Freud called oral fixation, whereby everything they put in their hands, like a child, if you put anything in the child's hands, they want to put it in their mouth. It is the same thing with a lot of these corrupt officials, whereby they just want to consume, their compulsive consumption, they have greed. So that is one way to also look at corruption and a system that also brings about it. And the other one that I will also want to talk about, which is particular to Nigeria, is our value system, right?
Okay.
We look at our value system. We look at things from the point of view of the material value of it. We see people as the clothes they wear, the house they drive, they live in, the cars they drive. We don't see them for their personality. And these are some things that I feel like things that enable corruption. Like in some other places, if public officials or civil servants or anybody is corrupt, they are looked down upon, they are looked at with derision. And like that quote, that amazing quote you started with said, unless we start to hold the corrupt accountable, we will not be able to reverse this trend, because every single thing that has been gone wrong with Nigeria is as a result of corruption. Funny enough, I was just doing one of my random research, and I came about I came across the cement armada scandal in Nigeria that occurred in like 1973. Everything based off of corruption, people trying to steal money from the government. They ordered cement that they could not process at the port, and then they lost their value, and then they kept on selling it, and buildings started collapsing. So this corruption is very bad. But what corrupt people don't know is that the corruption is to the detriment of their own interest.
But really, with so much anti-corruption campaigns, corruption is still eating deep. Even humanity seems to be dead. What could be responsible? Is it that we have lost our values, or our conscience is dead, or we actually do not pay attention to humanity, to feelings anymore?
All of that plays, corruption is multidimensional, definitely. Everything that you mentioned plays a salient role in it. When people steal 100 million naira, you tell them to pay 1,000. That is something that enables the corruption, So the most important thing, like I always say, is that human being learned by operant conditioning. It is the result of what you have done that will inform your next decision. So if you touch fire and it burns you, you won't touch it again. So we have not made the anti-graft process painful enough. We have not made it painful enough. In most places in the world, when you are being accused of a corrupt practice, especially when it involves public fund, all your assets is confiscated. So imagine if your assets have been frozen for 8 years while you are going through the legal process. That has already made corruption very painful for you. And that's one of the reasons why I was happy when the current EFCC chairman requested for that power, the power to be able to freeze assets before even going through, the whole legal process. Because when you think about it, you are giving, if you don't freeze the assets at the point of accusation, you are giving those people avenue to move things around, to hide money, put it in the hands of their children, divest things, sell shares. These are some of the things that are very, very salient, so that the anti-corruption fight that we are doing will be potent. Another thing that I think EFCC should also think about in the thinking is, going after big targets, like the public civil servants who are in, top positions. They don't have the political power. They don't have the political power and the gravitas and the wherewithal to fight against the anti-graft people, and they can be easily picked up, and they are the ones that the big guys rely on to be corrupt. So if the anti-graft agencies can go along, follow those multiple low-level, corrupt people in government, in public office, then they would have prevented the big guys from being able to get their co-conspirators. So these are very important things that I feel like strategically the anti-graft agencies should start looking at. And I also think of a possibility of a more proactive way of going after grants, which is by trying to set, in quotes, just to make it simple, set people up. Essentially, go and test people to see if they will hold on to the requirements of their office. Try and see if they will be corrupt. And if they don't fall in, you give them a thumbs up.
All right. If you take a keen assessment of the Tinubu administration, you will notice that the present government has zero tolerance for corrupt practices. Let's drive this conversation towards the public sector one more time. Holding people accountable is a sure principle to nipping this menace in the bud. What other principles could be adopted for transparency and accountability to thrive, aside stiffer penalties or punishments?
We need to create more jobs. We need to do a mind change whereby we have a situation in Nigeria where you believe in miracles, and I believe in miracles too, but I don't believe that I will just make 500 million naira tomorrow. Suddenly. Do you understand? So we have to suddenly, exactly. So sudden wealth is something that we need to also we need to go to our churches and our mosques and everything and try to reorientate ourselves. And we also need to go to the youth to we have in my generation the most lucrative and the most rewarding profession is internet fraud. That is just a fact. So we need to also go after this, and part of what I also always talk about is in terms of this freezing assets. EFCC police, what they do right now is just essentially terrorize people and maybe whatever they want to get from them. Whereas they can do something much easier. The government has an interest in collecting taxes from every income that people make. So if you see money above a certain threshold, you should be able to report it to the Federal Inland Revenue Services, and then they freeze that account, and then you can come back and if you have legitimately earned that money, that this is my money, and they release it to you. Otherwise, that becomes the government's property. So now, by the time you discourage this, then the youth will have to go and work, because you don't pay taxes on the internet fraud money that you have gotten. So these are multiple steps that we need to take. And like you said, the president is really trying. He has shown that he had always shown, even when he was in Lagos, he had always shown that he does not have any interest in condoning any form of graft. He is the man that was with utmost probity. But one tree cannot make a forest. The president is not ubiquitous. He's not everywhere. He can only be in one place at a time. He can't see everything. So he needs people around him. He needs you and I to help him. As we have seen in the recent case that is still going on, he will not condone it. So when people also start exposing and trying to bring people into account, the president is going to support it. So we need to also support the president so that we can fight this corruption, because it is affecting all of us.
There's a need for reorientation. Now, before we go talk about the role of the home front, you are a public analyst. What role do you think civil society groups should be playing to curb this menace, and the media as well?
The popular saying is it means that money is the will of the good news, right? Of the gospel. So you need to fund the media so that they can do investigative journalism. There is not a lot of funding in that regard for media, but the media is doing as much as they can. But like you mentioned, the home front is very, very, very essential. I grew up in a family where we never looked at people from what they own or what they have or what food they eat. I don't see that. So by default, I don't value cash because it does not help me. I value the quality of people, the iwa omoluabi, like Yoruba people will say. We need to go back and let our parents start inculcating that kind of habit in their children. Not look at their friends as these messaging friends or these people. Yes, as a yardstick. Look at them as this kind person. Look at the quality of their being, what they have done to you. Then let us change the orientation. Let us also go to our churches. We should stop preaching miracles money. Miracle is the fact that we are living is a miracle. The fact that I am talking to you right now, I have my breath, it is a miracle, and it will take maybe a generation to reorientate ourselves. But one thing that is important is that thief penalty. Like, we have to make it in such a way that it is not like the government is scared of people being corrupt, so the government is not doing it. It's that the people being corrupt is scared of the government finding out. You cannot be scared of your child doing the wrong thing. Your child should be scared of you finding out that they are inferred. Just the process should be made painful, and painful by freezing accounts and freezing assets and freezing houses. So if you have to live with your sister for the next 5 years because you are going through a corruption case and all your houses have been frozen, the next person that is occupying your position will not want that experience. But if the next person that is occupying your position knows that you stole money and now you are living this good, you are flying all around the world, they will want to be like you. So we need to set examples and keep on setting that example whenever people are caught, definitely with fair trial and everything, being accounted for. So those are like some of the things that I feel like will lead us out of this corruption, because Nigeria is not a rich country. Nigeria has rich potentials.
Mr. Charles, someone said tackling corruption in the private sector is very difficult. Is this true?
Yes, private sector is very difficult because there's no real oversight over private sector. And it is the private sector that most times even initiates this whole public sector corruption. Like, let me give you another corruption in private sector. You have a cousin in the United States who wants to build a house, sends money to somebody, and then that person uses that money to build their own house. That is a serious amount of corruption. Imagine the number, because most of the experiences that people out here have had is that once they have that bad experience, then they pull back their resources, so they don't send money home again. And this has been something that has been going on for time immemorial. So the benefits that Nigeria should be even getting from the reparation of money, and then people investing in businesses and starting businesses and all, it is being lost because the government is not doing enough in tackling that particular angle of corruption. So this is definitely negatively affecting our economy. And I always say this, that the government has an interest in collecting taxes. So if there is any corruption, even in the private sector, that corruption, the person who stole that money is not paying tax to the government. So the government should go after that corruption. So we need to find a way to have uniform conformity in Nigeria when it comes to like obeying the rules and all. So yes, private sector, thank you for mentioning it. It's something that is very, very, very important. Even as little as me sending money for someone to build a house for me or to buy something for me, the government needs to look into those things.
Public analyst Charles Maridoti Oludari, I want to thank you so much for your thoughts on Insight this week. Thank you so much for your contributions.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. Appreciate it.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insights. My name is Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Information is power.